Let's finish session 46 talking about the catalyst of cancer. Let's begin. In the last video, we covered the first part of session 46, where they talked about Gandalf the cat who had a growth on his leg, and that led into the conversation of anger and how anger helps develop cancer, and now we're here. So I did want to stop the video around that question because that's going to lead into the conversation of cancer as it develops. It's a good thing to remember, and I'll probably say it right now at the get-go, is that I believe Ra already mentioned in the previous sessions that there is an increment. Yeah, we definitely covered this part. There is an increase of cancer as fourth density vibrations are streaming in to the planetary sphere, because there is more resistance. Basically, this is just my interpretation. There is more resistance to the natural vibration of love and acceptance that is just the, let's call it the foundation of the patterns of vibrations that make up DNA. And the less there is love and acceptance, the more catalyst will strike on people. And we can see that happening obviously over the past 100 years or so as cancer has developed, and we have increased a lot, even though I know this is a topic that is really hard to get across with people, because there seems to be a split, and I don't mean to make this introduction too long, but I think this is a good way to kind of set up our minds to know what we're talking about when we say that cancer is being generated mainly by the lack of use of catalysts, which we're going to talk in here. But think about, as I've explained in my previous videos, that there is a vibration, which is really the primordial pattern of life in the universe. And that vibration changes as there is a higher dimension of densities that we enter to. And this gets into all the cosmological model, so I don't want to get into that, but just imagine that the tune that we're dancing to, basically, the DNA or anything, matter, for that matter, it's dancing to, it's all being affected by this fourth density vibration. So the music changed, but we haven't changed the way we dance. I hope that makes sense, because that's the best analogy I can make of. This is something that Ra said, that this is the reason why, or this is one of the reasons why cancer has become so prevalent. So keep that in mind, as we know that the need for accepting and loving whatever comes our way, and we're going to see why that's important, or control it. That's the other alternative. But in any case, that's the foundation of why there's more cancer. But to get straight into the use of catalysts, or the lack of use of catalysts, grows cancer. And I wish they could have gone into more details, but this is all we got, and I won't venture to speculate more than I need to. So again, last video we ended up in question 9, and we're gonna get into question number 10, which is the following. We're done after Ra said, and I'll read it from my, the last thing they said was, the control is the key to negatively polarized use of catalysts. Acceptance is the key to positively polarized use of catalysts. Between these two polarities lies the potential for this random and undirected energy, creating a bodily complex analog for what you call cancerous growth tissue. And that leads us to the next question, where Don asks, and now we can actually make sense of the slide. I just read from the session itself. So, question 10 again. Don says, then, as I understand it, you are saying that if the positively polarizing entity fails to accept the other self, or if the negatively polarizing entity fails to control the other self, either of these conditions will cause cancer. Possibly. Is this correct? And Ra says, this is partially correct. The first acceptance or control, depending upon polarity, is of the self. Anger is one of many things to be accepted and loved, and as a part of self, or control as a part of self, if the entity is to do the work. All right, I'm going to read it again because I think my mind wasn't truly there. So Don is saying, if this is happening, right? If the positively polarizing entity fails to accept the other self, yeah, you can see that this, I can see why they say partially correct. Basically, if either positive or negative, and I don't think this has to do with the positive or negative, it's just a way to label them. The neutral entity, the entity receives catalyst, right? Depending on how they use it, it's going to be used positively or negatively, okay? So that's just, in relation to the individual, whatever their minds are directed to. So yeah, I think that's what Don was asking, that if the positive fails to accept the other self, or the negative fails to control the other self, actually it should be the self first. I think that's why they say partially, because you first need to control yourself and then use that to control the other self. And then cancer shows up. Basically, catalyst that's not used. So the Ra says this is partially correct. The first acceptance or control, depending upon polarity. Sure, the first acceptance or control, being acceptance of self, it always starts with the self, with you. If you accept yourself in the situation, then surely that's going to happen. If you control yourself, then surely that's going to happen, positive or negative. Anger is one of many things to be accepted and loved as part of self, or controlled as part of self, if the entity is to do work. So the other ones I kind of alluded to, which are just lower emotions, or any emotion for that matter. Fear, frustration, depression. Well, depression is it's a combination of many things, but fear, right? Anxiety could also be just, anxiety is a exacerbation of fear. Depression, same kind of thing, it's a mixture. Anger, what's the other one? I forgot. Sadness is another thing. You just feel sad for whatever the case may be. So these are emotions that is one of many things. I don't know why they didn't say emotions, but to me that's what it means. Anger is one of many emotions to be accepted and loved, or as part of self, or control as part of self. So basically these emotions are accepted, loved and accepted by the positive entity, or the entity who wants to polarize towards a positive. I'm kind of hesitant to use the word, like they say, the positive entity or the negative entity. Check that. I don't think Ra mentions it. I think that was part of Don's question, because there is no positive or negative entity to me, that uses. I think I'm complicated more than I need to. What I mean to say is that catalyst is neutral, and the person is neutral until they use the catalyst. Yeah, I probably should stop doing that. Complicated more than it needs to be. Let's just label people positive and negative, period. I don't like it, but let's keep going. But yeah, that's basically what they mean here. I don't know if I can take anything out of this. The first acceptance or control, depending. Okay, the last thing is that they say the first. They didn't say the second thing. The second is to accept and love, or love and accept the other self, or control the other, manipulate the other self. That would be the second thing to do after you receive the catalyst. And you either accept it and love it, or love it, accept it, and control it, or control it as a negative means to polarize ourselves. So, question 11, Don says, then are you saying that if a negatively polarized or polarizing entity, that seems better, is unable to control his own anger, or unable to control himself in anger, that he may cause cancer? You can see that Don wanted to ask, because it does make sense. Like, is a negative person or entity uses catalyst, and then can he develop cancer by not controlling himself? And this is quite correct, like Ross says. The negative polarization contains a great requirement for control and repression. And we're gonna get to the repression because that's the next question. But I want to make a point here, just to elaborate on the true negative entity. Okay. First of all, let's just answer the question. Says that it is correct that a negative entity, or an entity that fails to control it. But you see, somebody who fails to control it is also failing to accept and love. So that's why I called it the entity neutral. If you fail to control it or love it and accept it, then you're going to develop cancer. So when you get catalyst, you either love it and accept it, or you control it and manipulate others. That's just how it works. Otherwise, you're going to build up this energy. And it's not like, you're going to develop cancer right away. This happens over time. And I'm sure that there are several experiences that come out because it's cyclical. If catalyst is not used, it'll repeat itself and it'll keep repeating. And all of those repetitions are going to develop a sort of muscle, right? Just like when we train, we do reps and it increases the size of a muscle. Well, the same way, these repetitions of cycles are going to increase the mass of a cell growth in the possibly negatively, to the point that it's cancer. Negatively in health, not in polarization. I gotta check my words here. All right, so that's what happens. Now, the emphasis that I want to put is that let's take an entity who wants to polarize towards the negative. They need to have basically no emotions, not feel emotions. They train so well as to have that. This is why psychopaths usually are used or psychopathic traits are used to sort of diagnose if you're using things negatively. Because if you're repressing emotions and furthermore you're using them to control other people, because your things have been so sad for you that you can you can use that sadness to make people feel bad so they can do things for you. And you kind of use this in a very malevolent way, so controlling way. That's a negative being. For somebody to be like that, to have no emotions, it's a really hard training. So I guess the point that I want to make here is that it's fascinating. It really is I don't know, to me it's just like a matter of respect, for the people or for the entities that go through this path. It is so difficult. It must be so difficult. Maybe because I'm seeing it from a very emotional point of view, but it just seems like a completely foreign, an alien type of life for a human to be, and to, just completely repress emotions, have no emotions at all. And that's what they do. They use those emotions, control them, and then they use them on other people. So I don't know, that really escapes my mind. And I guess that's why I admire them. I really admire negative people or negative entities, because they have just a fascinating way of living. And their path is really strong, difficult. I'm sure this is why there's only 10% on average of them out there. So, wow, just fascinating to me. Not that I'm just looking at it from a neutral point of view. Though it feels like I'm a Satanist here, talking about psychopaths. I obviously don't condone anything that they do. It's not my way. But what I guess I want to put as an emphasis is just, all right, let me leave it at this. So it seems a little bit more diluted. Is that, think about the people that are in this path, and they just have no emotions. They simply have no way of relating to other people. And compared to the people who have emotions, it really is like an alien life form to me. I know I'm stuck here, thinking about this, but it's just fascinating to me. That is the truly negative being. When we feel that we may, I don't know, because we're still stuck with some catalyst, and I guess this is the practical point for you guys, assuming most of you are positive beings. Don't be hard on yourself because you feel like you may exhibit some negative behaviors. Those negative behaviors, for you to polarize towards the negative, you have to be really evil in the sense of the moral definitions of the word. Really evil. Like, you really have to use this for your own benefit. You consciously have to do it. So don't feel bad that you're using Catalyst to the best of your ability and there is still some negative influence there. We all have our negative side. That's just teaching us. The negative side for the negatives is just for polarizing themselves. So hope it makes sense. I guess I just wanted to illustrate the really negative entity so you can see how difficult a path it is, and that you're far away from that. Unless you're a negative and you're watching this, then all the power to you, my friend. Good luck and admiration. That's difficult. All right, from my point of view at least. Question 12. Don says, a repression of what? And Ra says, any mind complex distortion, which you may call emotional, which is of itself disorganized, needs, in order to be useful to the negatively oriented entity, to be repressed and then brought to the surface in an organized use. Thus, you may find, for instance, negatively polarized entities controlling and repressing such basic bodily complex needs as the sexual desire, in order that in the practice thereof, the will may be used to enforce itself upon the other self with greater efficiency when the sexual behavior is allowed. So I like that they're using sexual behavior to illustrate this. So first thing to note, they say any mind complex distortion, which is interesting because they're talking about the specific mind part, right? That's where everything is being generated. So the distortion, which we may call emotional, any emotion that is naturally disorganized. Any emotion is naturally disorganized. So we balance it in the sense of love and acceptance. That's how you balance it positively. But they're talking about the negative here. And in the negative, what they need to do is, in order to be useful, is to control it. Or first repress it, of course, because the emotion cannot surface first. So you control it. You stay calm and you don't say anything. You're not spontaneous. You're just there, and don't say anything. So you repress it. But that's not the end of it. You see, this is why I made maybe such a long monologue before, and talking about the negative entity being so dedicated, I guess, to repressing and then controlling or organizing it. That's what they say. They organize it before bringing it up to the surface. Organize it so they can use it. So it's repression, control, organize, and then bringing it up to the surface as a means to control other self. That's the negative way. Whereas you, who may have been taught not to, yell at your superiors or your elderly, whatever repression we have been imposed with, and we're not supposed to do, and that's just repressing our emotions. We just go and cry and yell at somebody else or take it on someone else. That's just us venting out whatever we can't either control or love and accept. So that's a huge difference. See, that's a huge difference between the negatively polarized and the, let's call it, the indifferent individual who doesn't want to accept, love and accept, and also doesn't control it because probably, very likely, it's not inherently in their nature. Okay, so they say, thus you may find, for instance, negatively polarized entities controlling and repressing. Okay, so such basic bodily complex needs as sexual desire, which is, again, that is, there are emotions that come about for us to have a sexual desire. And instead of just using it and exploring it and finding out, what it means, to love that part of the self, then they use it, they control it, they control themselves. What do they say? Controlling and repressing such basic bodily complex, sexual desires, blah, 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 in order to practice thereof. In the practice thereof, of sex, the will may be used to enforce itself upon the other self. So now the will is in practice here to enforce the self upon the other self with greater efficiency when the sexual behaviors allow. So whenever they can have sex, they can use those emotions, which it's usually the master over the other, the slave type of behavior and that sort of thing. BDSM, I'm sure, is one of those practices that it's very prevalent in our society because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of repression, even in the people who are positively polarized. There's a lot of sexual repression. So I love that they use this because these are emotions that are arising on us, and they need to be expressed one way or another. They need to be explored, either by the self alone or with another self. It just depends, on what you decide in your life, what's manifested in your life. So let's go into question 13. Don says, then the positively oriented entity, rather than attempting repression of emotion, would balance the emotion as stated in an earlier contact. Is this correct? Ron says this is correct and illustrates the path of unity. I'll just say here that, like I said already, the emotion by the positive entity is to use the catalyst as a means to know the self. I think that's it. Knowing the self. If you know yourself in the face of an emotion and you learn about yourself with emotions, then you love and accept that. That is the path of unity, because you are accepting and loving. That is, love is another word in my dictionary for unity. Love is the binding force of everything. Love is between a proton and an electron, between a DNA, between animals, between humans, between a planet and a star, between a star and a galaxy, between all the galaxies. It's just the binding force. It's the gravity, if you will. It's the force that actually binds every dual system too. Negative and positive. That's love. The binding agent is love. It's unity. It's that force that we can't measure, but it's really everything. It's the one that's keeping everything together. So once you accept it, first thing, then love it, and with love you just understand the unity of it. You understand why that is there. That is awakening. So, or it's another way of saying awakening. It's a product of awakening. All right, so I just wanted to say that. Question 14, Don says, then Cancer is a training catalyst operating for both polarities in approximately the same way, but attempting, let's say, to create polarization in both directions, positive and negative, depending upon the orientation of the entity experiencing the catalyst. Is this correct? And Ra says, this is incorrect in that catalyst is unconscious and does not work with intelligence, but rather is part of the, shall we say, mechanism of learned teaching set up by the sub-logos before the beginning of your space-time. Catalyst is neutral. Catalyst does not have an agenda. Catalyst is there to provide experience. Catalyst is there, it's like everything else. It's anything in nature is neutral. There is no good and bad. There is no up and low. There is no higher. There is nothing. It's neutral. It's our perception. Perception is what gives the qualities to everything. So, catalyst is not there to provide, like Don said. What did I say? Cancer is a training catalyst, operating for both polarities. I see the meaning of the question there, but it's not correctly formulated. But the take home point here is that it is it doesn't have an intelligence. Catalyst does not have an agenda, so it's just there to provide a possible learned teaching, a possible lesson for us. We may not see it. So see, catalyst is unused, then it has nothing. It's just there. it's just gonna wait again to come back. All right, so that's what Ra is mentioning here. Question 15 says, Don, how does Cancer do this learned teaching when the entity has no conscious idea of what is happening to him when he develops Cancer? I can see where Don is asking the question here, but see, Ra says, in many cases, catalyst is not used. I'm just going to go to the next question. What is the plan for use of the catalyst of Cancer then? That's what Don is saying, basically. The catalyst, and all catalyst, is designed to offer experience. This experience in your density may be loved and accepted, or it may be controlled. These are the two paths. When neither path is chosen, the catalyst fails in its design, and the entity proceeds until catalyst strikes it, which causes it to form a bias towards acceptance and love, or separation and control. There is no lack of space-time in which this catalyst may work. So, again, I think it's because Don wanted to know about Cancer. Like, what's the purpose of Cancer? Is it there to give us a positive or negative? I mean, Cancer is just another form of catalyst. Or is what catalyst gets transformed into. Let me put it this way. If I still don't accept the fact that my wife left me, or that my girlfriend cheated on me, or my mother neglected me, whatever that may be, then I don't accept. I first don't accept it, so I can't love it. So I don't accept it. I'm going to talk about the positive path. I don't talk about the negative. But you can imagine it if you don't control that and use it for your own benefit. But in the positive path, if I don't do it, or the negative also, why not? If it's not used, then it'll repeat itself. It'll come again. I'll get another wife, and she's gonna dump me again, or it's gonna be something similar. Then it's not my mother neglecting me, but my best friend, or even my dog. I don't know. My boss, my coworkers, whatever. Somebody else will neglect me, and I'll keep ignoring that and saying, "Poor me, I'm the victim. Everybody's evil to me. Life is against me." Okay, so that you can already see that there's an emotion, an energy building up in me that, in essence, my complex, my mind complex, is going to say, well, let's develop this Cancer. And it will develop because of mental and physical energies that are simply manifesting as catalyst is not used. So Cancer will develop. There is still the possibility, I don't think, yet. Let me go into this with this question. You see, when we don't use it, then it becomes Cancer. But the Cancer, it's still catalyst, unused catalyst. This is why people heal from Cancer. And medicine, poor medicine, or the medical world in the Western side of our world, they're flabbergasted by this. How did this happen? People just, it's a miracle. Well, it is a sort of miracle, but it's because people learned whatever they did. Sure, you can. This is why you can go into remission, and it'll come back, because the foundation of it is still there. The emotional charge, you still haven't accepted anything. This is why people heal from Cancer with other treatment. In fact, I have a story that I would love to share. This is what happened in my life, and I only want to use it because I think it's just a fascinating and beautiful example of how this works. My mother died of cancer. When she died of cancer, she had a lot of things that I know because of her behavior she didn't accept and love. And that's just everybody, in this world. We have a lot of that. That's pretty common. And so, but that's not the story that I want to share. is my father, who was the healthiest guy possible I've ever met in my life. He would get sick within one day, he was up again. And I mean literally down sick. And he would get like this. And he was a very positive, oh my God, my dad was such a positive being. You know, he would say like, oh, I have nothing, it's gonna go away in a day. And he would, you know, he would not get sick. Super healthy guy. And lo and behold, my mother dies. Their love was like no other. Beautiful story, the two of them. And when my mother died, my father, within months, got sick for over a week, and he weakened to the point that he got cancer. And throughout the whole 9 months that my father lasted, probably a little bit more, I think actually 11 months or so, it was almost a year after my mom passed, he would not accept the fact that my mother had died, and he couldn't live anymore without her. That caused cancer immediately. It was just like a downhill situation. Healthiest guy in the world to me, and he developed this cancer out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. It spread all over his body, and he died a very peaceful death, and I'm so grateful to have experienced that, as was the case with my mother. And just to see this in action, it truly is fascinating how this works. I know this is anecdotal. It doesn't have too much of an empirical body to it, but it's my experience, and I can see it in action. I could see it in action. I could see both things. The development of cancer, uncurable, because he could not accept it. As much as I would talk to him and we would have our conversations, there's always a wall that people are not willing to cross. And that's fine, because that is the design by intelligence, higher intelligence, which is not for me to question, and I always accepted that. But the most fascinating thing is just to see the lack of acceptance. So both things at work precipitating. It was just a beautiful experience to me, as I love to explore and analyze this reality. So this is what happens. We can develop it over time, as my mother did, or you can develop it at once, depending on how strong those emotions are that you're not willing to accept and love if you want to continue living. And you can see that it just makes sense. If you don't, the more you don't accept and love, then the less you're willing to live. The more of a foreign entity you are here, and you want to precipitate your own death. This is a conclusion that I also got from my father's story, is that, you know, it's fine to die. I think I should talk about this in the conclusions, because we have one more question, and I feel like I'm getting into the end of it, but believe me, this is definitely going to the conclusions. All right, let me finish this. We have one more slide, one more question. It's not really that important. I just want to finish it. Don says in question 17, I am assuming that the sub-logos, or the logos plan, is for positively and negatively polarized social memory complexes in fourth density and above. Can you tell me the purpose of the plan for these two types of social memory complexes with respect, shall we say, to Coulomb's law? I think that's how it's pronounced. Or negative and positive electrical polarity, or any way you can. You can see, Ross says, this instrument grows weary. We shall speak with you again. We may indicate the possibility, without further harm to this instrument, of approximately 2 sessions per your weekly period until these weeks of potential for attack and presence of very low physical energy are past. May we say it is good to be with this group. We appreciate your fidelity. Are there any brief queries before the end of this work time? And just Don asking if they can do anything to make Harla more comfortable and to improve the contact as usual. Nothing more to get out of there. This question gets lost. I don't think Don expands on this. It seemed like a nice question. Was a little scientific there. Let me go back. It's the development. Like, what's the purpose? But I think, I don't know if this question gets answered later, but because it's such a good question, let me give you my impression. Don says, and again, this is just me talking. It's not Ra. I am Gab. I'm Gabe. I am assuming that the sub-logos or logos plan is for positive and negative polarized social memory complex in 4 density and above. What's the purpose of the plan for these 2 types of social memory complexes? Why? Simple. And again, I think I might have read this, or maybe it's just my reasoning. Social memory complexes are a form of unity, and the purpose of creation is unity. So that's just how it is. We begin the path of separation first, and then we go into unity. That's the whole purpose of creation. If we can explain the creation, explain like I'm 5, then you can just say, well, the creation is infinity, and infinity to know itself creates separation. So through separation it can know itself, but eventually go back to unity, and it's a cycle. From unity goes back creation, and the 2 go together. That's it. Period. That's the purpose of social memory complexes. I'm sure Ra could elaborate more, but that's just, hey, that's all you got here. So it's me. All right. So again, I'm not sure if this gets covered, but that's it. Conclusions. Picking up from cancer. I think it's the most important thing to know, that we should always, and we, I mean positive beings. If you're negative, then just remember, control, and use for manipulation. Good luck, have fun. We need you. We still need you. You guys are important. And if there's no negative and only positive people here, then we need them. We need negative people because they are the reflection of ourselves. I just uploaded recently, a couple of weeks ago by this time, Transcending Evil. I made a whole video talking about the 6 steps of transcending evil. Go check it out. I think it's really cool. But going back to cancer, everything that comes our way needs to be loved, accepted, and loved. First, you accept it. You say, okay, I have cancer. I accept. I take it. I recognize it as part of myself. I don't know how. I don't know which emotion was. I don't know what it is, but that's fine. This is why even psychedelic substances can cure cancer. Not because of the substance itself goes inside and destroys the cancer like broccoli. It's the fact that you go introspectively into yourself, and as you go inwards, you say, oh my God, that trauma when I was a kid and I was, kicked out of school or beaten at school or whatever, and now I have this fear and trauma, for tall women, whatever. Weird stuff that happened that for us is just like, I can accept that. That's easy. I'm fine with that. And all of a sudden, click, your life changes and, your health improves. You don't even have to have cancer for this. You can improve so much of this. Now, I'm not, saying go get psychedelics for this. It's a very delicate issue or topic. I haven't made videos in English because I'm fascinated with the psychedelic world, of course, because my spiritual awakening was with psychedelics, but again, that's another topic. My point is that we need to accept anything. And even if it's cancer, okay, it'll show. That's another thing. If you're receptive in your life, your life is self-transforming in the way that it can reflect your mind. Trust me, it is so obvious when you are aware, when you're perceptive, that life is only teaching you those things that you have projected in the past or that have been projected on you. And you, by reflection, project it outwards, and then you see it. So you don't have to do psychedelics. You don't have to go, to a monastery. You don't have to go to clinics. You don't have to go to anywhere, retreats and so on. You are a living projector of what's inside you. So if you pay attention to life and you accept and love everything, not intellectually, but truly go inside and, just do the work. This is the actual work of living. Is it so hard to say, like, listen, what you're going to gain out of this is you're going to accept and love the whole world. Oh my God, who wouldn't sign up for that? I would make millions of dollars if I can just post that on a website and everybody would sign up to my seminars and I just teach that. Come on, who doesn't want to do that? So that's exactly what's being said here. You know, for cancer, illness, in general, just catalyst that comes your way. Why? Because like I said, unity lies, love is unity. And unity lies at the core of the whole creation. It's what binds all polarities. There is not one polarity that is not unified by love. So there you have it. I mean, it's simple and it's easy. That's it. I could probably talk more, but I think that's it. It's not a long session or a long video here. I'm glad we got a short one, so I didn't expand much on this. Like I said, this last question gets lost. I think maybe it'll come back, but that's my take on this, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. In the description there are links if you want to support me and my work. You don't have to, but if you just want to do it the YouTube way, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, put a comment there, say hello, whatever, anything to rekindle the love of YouTube for my channel so it can get to more people synchronistically to them. All right, so thank you so much. I love you. Thank you for watching, really, from my heart. I'll see you in session 47.